Sup everyone, welcome back to a Genshin news segment. This just in on Reddit. Yes, Reddit. I know a lot of you guys are like, ew, Reddit. Walrus, don't touch Reddit. But come on guys, once in a while we really gotta get on here and just explore the minds of the top of the crop when it comes to society's greatest modern day minds. You guys couldn't tell that was a bit of sarcasm for you here early in the morning, but we're back in Genshin Impact again. I know, Honkai Genshin. We're gonna be jumping back and forth in between, so make sure you have your seatbelts on so you don't get a severe whiplash between these two before we even add in Wuthering Waves content for you guys here on the channel. But today we're looking at Baizhu's main, actually, because I come across a post and some people were saying like, well, I gotta take a look at this. People are giving this quite a bit of upvote because there is this issue with the Genshin community. It was like, oh my god, new broken character from Liyue, and that's the big thing, right? Like, he's from Liyue. People expect him to be broken. I don't know when this started, but it truly is an interesting phenomenon that characters from Liyue are just built different, right? We can't say it's placebo because truly, if you just look at any tier list, if you just play the characters yourself even, you can feel it. There is some sort of bias towards Liyue character. Is it nationalistic pride? I don't know. Does Hoyoverse have certain things about them that they don't tell us, that they just have to abide certain rules? Who knows? But it seems like people believe Baizhu might be the first 5-star character to break this long chain of OP Liyue characters. But first, let's take a look at the Reddit post to give you guys a little more context. So here it is, right? The post says the disappointment happening about Baizhu. Now, don't let this title deceive you. This person is basically kind of trying to shed light on the whole Baizhu situation. So here is the problem, right? Some people are disappointed about Baizhu's kit. He's a Liyue character. They're expecting him to be above average, same league as the T0 characters. And no, right? You know, subverting people's expectations might be one of the things Hoyoverse does best, and that may be one of the new ways they also leverage to make money because, hey, you know, Liyue character on paper looks pretty damn good. Pull the rug from underneath them, right? Just an okay B tier, A tier character that fulfills a more supplementary role as opposed to dominating and sub-creating a whole new meta of play, right? That's what I think Baizhu is going to be like. Somebody who is a more supportive role to maybe Nahida, maybe to other DPS carries, a role that we currently don't specifically have, but we don't necessarily absolutely need, okay? So here they continue saying, maybe they're expecting a broken shield, a significant buffer, or even a great dendro applicator. All things that I said that Baizhu should focus on, but the fact he has all of them, you're gonna have to balance this out a little bit. He can't be a really good shielder, a good buffer, and an insane dendro applicator. You just can't have all three smacked into one character, right? Like, come on, guys. Hoyoverse is a small company. They need to make money. They can't make a character that good. Again, if you guys can't tell, there's a little bit of sarcasm for you here in the morning. Anyways, continuing here, but he did not fulfill those expectations, right? His shield is paper thin. Just like my wallet nowadays. His buff isn't significant compared to Zhongli and Yao Yao's C1 in spread teams. His dendro application isn't that great to justify replacing Nahida as a sole dendro applicator in specific teams. In short, he does many things, but these aspects are undertuned, so he cannot fully replace or outdo a certain character in that niche. Bam, hit him with the hard stuff, right? Like, pull him, but he'll never ever be able to be a standalone character that supports your team with the utility that he brings. You can bring a whole clown car of utilities, but at the end of the day, you know, you still need more than one clown to make a circus. So that's the whole problem here, is that Baizhu can't stand alone and perform as well. However, I want to argue that Baiju's design and his numbers, maybe his scaling, most likely lean towards certain specific teams, and him being a more dedicated support character towards certain characters over other characters, right? A good example a lot of people want to play him with is Cyno. Here's the thing about Cyno, right? Cyno has a long field time, and a lot of people don't understand that when you play Cyno, you really need a shield not to say block damage. You need a shield to stop him from being interrupted. Interruptions in Genshin Impact can actually severely hinder DPS output, especially for a character like Cyno, who has very precise timing with his elemental skill in his burst state, right? So imagine if you get one interruption during your burst state without a shield, you miss that window, well then you have a very tough choice to make. Do you now make up for it by still using your elemental skill but just mistiming the window, and then risk mistiming your future windows as well, and also on top of that more interruptions, right? So that's why a lot of people right now run a shielder with Sino. You just have to. If you don't, you're basically throwing a dice every time you're about to deal damage. So that's a big problem. Baizhu's shield, while yes, it's paper thin, but I've always said in the past that a shield's main focus, to me at least, has always been to resist interruptions and not to completely block out damage. Sure, blocking out damage is amazing. It allows me to play the game on super baby easy mode, but I couldn't care less about that, right? Like, honestly, I have enough good units in my team comps to be able to shift things around here and there to get enough healing and support and survivability, but that interruption resistance is something that is unique pretty much to shielders and certain characters' kits. Unfortunately, Sino is not one of those characters. I mean, he kind of is, but his is just incomparable to a character like Raiden Shogun, which really sucks, man. Like, why did they have to do him like that? Why don't you just give him strong interruption resistance and then let us bring a healer instead of a shielder? I don't know. Ask HoYoVerse. Don't ask me. Maybe it is just to sell Baizhu. Anyways, let's continue. Here's the person saying now, but does that mean he's bad? If you are gonna focus on his kit and disregard his competitors, I can say he's promising and very usable. Well, you know, we might have some issues when you say he's very usable. Right? Can't say he's good. He's promising, right? He shows promise and very usable. I don't know. People want to hear broken. People want to hear insane. I'm talking about the Genshin community, right? The vast majority of them would be like, oh, broken OP. That's why content creators always say everything is broken OP until they aren't. About his shield, we all know it's paper thin. I do not consider it as a common shield or face tanking. Yes, this is so good that they pointed out. That's what I was saying, right? Baizhu's shield seems to be like this momentary, fleeting, protective veil. Right? It's not something like Zhongli that it's not a body armor that you strap in. Like, different concept for shielding here. It's actually the first time we see a shielding that works in this manner. It's just like it's on and off and on and off and on and off, pretty much. The shield is weak, but has the potential to be useful. For instance, an Eremite could stagger you 4 times, but with Baizhu's shield, the Eremite could only stagger you 2 times. Okay, still pretty bad. And if you dodge and apply some of your skill, there's a chance you wouldn't be staggered at all. There's a chance, right? It's up to you. You wouldn't treat it as a shield for face tanking, but just a mini interruption resistance for a heavy hitter that you cannot avoid. And if you guys don't know, the thing about Genshin Impact shields is very weird. In my opinion, it should have been done differently, but the shield will break once the damage has reached its limit. So for example, in some games, if your shield has like 2 HP left on your shield and the enemy does like 5 million DPS on you, that 2 shield will completely negate the 5 million DPS, right? It's just, and then the shield breaks. But in Genshin, no. If you have 3 HP on your shield, which obviously you don't know how much HP you have because HoYoVerse doesn't have an indicator for it. If you have 3 HP on it and an enemy does 5, you're still gonna take 2 damage. It breaks through it. It's crazy, it's weird, and with no indicator, it makes it extremely difficult to time when and when not to dodge. And I believe that's going to be a slight headache for people who rely on Baizhu shields, is that yes, you'll still see the shield on you, but if the enemy uses an attack that's strong enough, it will still go through and affect you. Kind of sucks in my opinion. That's why characters like Zhongli is so preferred over other shielders. It's just because you don't have to worry about this weird mechanic of the game. My only problem with shields is that they aren't invincible. Even when the characters are iframing in their burst, it becomes useless. I tried this with Zhongli, Last Abyss in 3.5, while Hu Tao Mona is using her burst to iframe, the 2 Lawachers can still break Zhongli's shield during that iframe. It would actually affect Baiju's utility as well. It can really make or break him. If your enemies are husks, his shield could be a hindrance since the husk buffs themselves when they hit a shield. Again, right, we cannot really focus on the negatives here because there are enemies that are specifically designed to counter shielders, right? Husks are one of them. There's also the wolves, right? It doesn't really matter, but the thing is, Baizhu as a healer shielder counters the wolves as well, right? Have you guys considered this? that because you have Baizhu, sure, his healing is not spectacular. I've seen it. His shielding is not great, but in the case of the wolves, you don't even care about shielding anymore, right? I think Baizhu gives enough healing to sustain your on-field characters, and also just having shielding healing in one kit does have its merit. He likely will be able to have people pour high amount of investments into him and perform very well across many different types of content. I think that versatility cannot be understated here. His healing is actually good, right? That's what people are saying. The ones of the best healers in the game with 38k HP, Baizhu can heal 10k on the party members. It's very good that despite having a weak shield, that heal can aid you to become immortal. Current enemies are hitting harder than before, so it just feels right to have a generous healing amount. Baizhu's healing is pretty respectable. I think he's more of a healer with a shielding supplementary effect as opposed to a shielder with a healing supplementary effect. The problem with Zhongli is if that his shield breaks early or if there is corrosion, right? Exactly. Right, then you don't have the benefit of survivability anymore. The problem with Kokomi is that her jellyfish position is fixed, so it cannot heal you if you're out of its range unless you reposition. Both very valid points. So with Baizhu, they're both not as big of a problem. The problem actually is that if Baizhu's shield breaks, you're probably going to get completely one-shot or demolished if you have a very weak character on field. So I don't think Baiju's shield is going to be as useful maybe for squishy characters like Yoimiya, stuff like that. I know you're never going to use it for Yoimiya, but just giving you an example right here. Abyss is also about survival. I don't know about that. I mean, Abyss has always been about DPS, in my opinion. Survival came second. Maybe in modern days, you just need enough defensive capabilities to survive certain onslaught chambers, but overall, it's always about how fast you can clear it. So I don't know. This might be a little bit of a reach. If the current healers heals you adequately, Baizhu will definitely be more than enough to secure you no matter what, since he has a lot of sources of survivability. Okay. He can be a Thrilling Tales user. Yao Yao and Zhongli cannot use Thrilling Tales, but Baizhu can. Kokomi can. But you have to maintain her jellyfish uptime, which, you know, it's not crazy difficult. If you have enough energy recharge, I believe you should be able to have it almost indefinitely, because Kokomi's burst refreshes the jellyfish, and throughout the burst, even though the jellyfish is on field, the elemental skill CD is still ticking down. So by the time her burst is done, then your elemental skill jellyfish is back, and then if you can collect enough particles, then you probably will get her burst back pretty quickly and then refresh and refresh, right? So, but it's very difficult. Kokomi's burst, you need to stack quite a lot of energy recharge, and oftentimes you don't have that on her weapon or her artifact. So it's all from substats, very difficult to do. Her biggest strength can be her weakness. Her energy particle generation is bad, exactly, and her jellyfish cannot be repositioned. So Sacramental Veteran could be comfier for her. Yeah, I've seen people do this, but honestly, if you're forsakening damage for survivability, you do run into the risk of not clearing the chamber fast enough. So it's something that's up to you guys to decide. But with Baizhu, you can slot TTDS, right? And only if there's a Dendro that can battery him like Nahida. Alhaitham plus Nahida plus Yai plus Baizhu with TTDS could be a very good team, right? Sino plus Nahida plus Baizhu plus Yelan too. Again, right? These teams are probably the few teams that he's going to be able to slot in comfortably. Alhaitham and Sino. I don't know about other teams such as Tainari teams. I believe that in theory you should be able to, but again, remember that Baizhu is a healer with shielding capabilities and not the other way around. The shielding should not be seen as a means of defense. It should be seen as more like resistance stats towards enemies. I know it's kind of weird to think of a feature like a shield as a resistance stat, but truly his shield doesn't seem very reliable when it comes to tanking damage. Right? Maybe the one off chance a Hilichurl shoots an arrow at you, which oftentimes, yes, it will stagger you, and that shield will block that hit, and it's these minor inconveniences that will probably boost up your overall game quality here and there. Okay, Dendro application, he cannot be a solo Dendro applicator, but a second Dendro character would be able to cover this weakness. If you slot him in that way, the team will still be competent. Actually, his weakness can't become his strength. His Dendro application doesn't suffer from multi-wave content. I'm actually really happy this person has put a lot of thought into this. Well, the thing is with, for example, Nahida and Cyno is that Cyno will kill things pretty fast with Nahida having her burst on and also having all the enemies marked, but Cyno's burst will last a really long time, up to 18 seconds, and before he can fully utilize that, the enemies oftentimes are already dead. So what ends up happening is you're in this awkward situation where you have to end your burst early just to go back to Nahida to apply all the marks, and again, but then Cyno's burst wouldn't be back and ready, so then you're left with no Cyno burst and Nahida has already marked all the enemies, and then you're gonna have to find another way to deal damage. You're gonna lose a lot of DPS. So yes, with Baizhu you should be able to leverage more of that time frame for Cyno. That's why I think a lot of people think Baizhu is going to be the perfect fit for Cyno. Baizhu is not a perfect character, but very usable in certain niches. I'm a meta player, but I could actually see that he's promising. If there is an artifact set like when shields break, it can provide buffs for the party member, he's gonna be better. I just saw tons of people saying, is there a reason to pull for Baizhu if X can do it better when it comes to this? Maybe discouraging people from pulling him, so I'm here to say he's using it despite the competition being better than him in some situations. Well, that's the thing, he's a consolidation of roles. I keep saying this, a consolidation of role is important, but at the same time, Hoiverse cannot overdo it. You cannot make him a very good shielder, a very good healer, and a very good Dendro applicator. He can probably have one that he's good at, and the other two should be supplementary. And in this case, it seems like his healing is going to be very good and respectable, but his shielding is going to kind of suck. His Dendro application is going to suck. But combined with the other characters that you have on your team, right? Again, he is fulfilling the role kind of like 2.5 characters, right? His shielding isn't a full shield, it's kind of like just an anti-interruption thing, which honestly should have been in some of the characters that he's facilitating, such as Cyno, but anyways, we're not going to fixate on that. Overall, I think Baizhu is going to be a pretty decent character. In fact, I'm going to be making, once again, a tier list. Been a very long time since I did, and I'm going to include Baizhu in it, and I believe, spoiler alert, I think he's going to be sitting comfortably at A tier, right? If maybe even S tier when it comes to current modern metas. But anyways, that's it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, Baizhus, stay safe. Peace, bye.